You can't escape your own mind, but you can silence it. This audiobook will show you how to stop overthinking forever, reclaim your focus, and finally find the mental peace you've been searching for. The Quiet Mind Method. Audiobook by Rowan March, published by Inner Impact Books. Introduction. Your mind is too loud and it's keeping you stuck. Right now, your thoughts are racing. You're analyzing every decision, replaying conversations from days ago, and worrying about scenarios that may never happen. Your mental chatter is constant, exhausting, and overwhelming. Every choice feels like a maze with no exit, and the more you think, the harder it becomes to act. You've tried everything: meditation apps, breathing exercises, positive affirmations, yet your mind keeps spinning, trapped in endless loops of what-ifs and should-haves. You've been told this is just who you are: a deep thinker, a careful planner, someone who considers all angles. But let's be honest, this isn't careful thinking. It's mental paralysis. By the time you finish this audiobook, you will have the tools to silence your mind, stop overthinking forever, and unlock a new level of clarity and peace. This isn't another collection of empty platitudes telling you to just be mindful or think positive thoughts. Those surface-level solutions don't work because they don't address the root cause of your overthinking. What you need is the Quiet Mind Method, a structured approach to rewiring your relationship with your thoughts and finally gaining true mastery over your mind. This method isn't theory. It's a practical system built on proven principles of neuroscience and behavioral psychology, refined through real-world application. Change isn't just possible. It's inevitable when you apply these tools consistently. You can transform your noisy mind into your greatest ally. Overthinking has stolen enough from you. It's time to take back control. Chapter 1. Breaking Free from the Prison of Overthinking. You wake up, and before your feet even hit the floor, your mind is already racing. That conversation from yesterday, did you say the right thing? Should you have phrased it differently? Your mental wheels start spinning through today's to-do list, analyzing every possible outcome, imagining worst-case scenarios. By the time you've had your first cup of coffee, you're mentally exhausted, and your day hasn't even begun. This isn't just your morning routine, it's your life's pattern. Every decision, no matter how small, becomes a complex web of possibilities. Every interaction turns into a post-mortem analysis. Every choice feels weighted with infinite consequences. Overthinking isn't just a habit, it's a prison. And you've become both the prisoner and the guard, convinced that if you just think things through one more time, you'll finally find the perfect solution. But here's what you need to understand. Overthinking masquerades as intelligence, caution, and thorough preparation. It presents itself as your mind's way of protecting you from mistakes, ensuring success, and maintaining control. In reality, it's fear wearing a sophisticated disguise. Your brain wasn't designed to run on an endless loop of analysis. It was built for action, creativity, and presence in the moment. Recent neuroscience research reveals that excessive rumination actually overstimulates the brain's prefrontal cortex, leading to decision paralysis rather than clarity. It's like revving a car engine while stuck in neutral. You're burning energy but going nowhere. The mental exhaustion you feel isn't from productive thinking. It's from spinning your wheels in the mud of uncertainty. Consider Elon Musk's approach to decision-making. Despite running multiple revolutionary companies and facing decisions that could impact thousands of employees and billions of dollars, Musk is known for making swift, decisive choices without falling into analysis paralysis. When asked about his decision-making process, he explained that he spends less time worrying about decisions than most people think. I think we generally spend too much time on little decisions and not enough time on big decisions, Musk stated at a conference. We should spend our time on things that are actually important versus things that don't matter that much. The difference between success and stagnation isn't more thinking. It's knowing when to think and when to act. It's about developing the wisdom to distinguish between productive analysis and destructive rumination. Now, breaking free from overthinking starts with a fundamental shift: awareness. Before you can stop the endless mental chatter, you must first recognize when you're caught in a thought spiral. Think of your mind as a busy courtroom where arguments never cease. Your job isn't to be another lawyer adding to the noise. Your role is to be the judge, maintaining order and knowing when it's time to make a ruling. This awareness becomes your first line of defense against mental chaos. When you catch yourself replaying a conversation for the 10th time or imagining every possible outcome of a future event, pause. Notice what's happening. Label it for what it is: overthinking. Take Lena, a marketing executive who used to spend hours crafting every email, terrified of potential misinterpretations or mistakes. Her overthinking had turned simple communications into anxiety-inducing marathons. But when she started implementing the decision deadline technique, giving herself a strict time limit for making choices and moving forward, something shifted. She began setting a timer for 5 minutes per email. When the timer went off, she had to send it, regardless of how many times she'd reviewed it. The first few times were terrifying, she admits. But then I noticed something. None of those disasters I imagined ever happened. My quick decisions were just as good as the ones I'd agonized over for hours. Sometimes they were even better because they came from a place of clarity rather than fear. Your challenge now is simple but powerful. Start labeling your overthinking. Every time you catch yourself in a mental spiral, simply say to yourself, "This is overthinking." Don't try to stop it. Don't judge yourself for it. Just notice it. This awareness is your first step toward freedom from the prison of your thoughts. Chapter 2. The 70% Solution: Breaking the Analysis Paralysis Cycle. There's a dangerous lie you've been told your whole life. If you just think about something long enough, you'll figure it out. This deception has probably cost you countless hours, opportunities, and peace of mind. You've likely experienced it yourself, sitting there, analyzing a decision from every possible angle, convinced that just one more round of mental gymnastics will reveal the perfect answer. But has that ever really worked? Think about the last time you were faced with an important choice. Maybe it was a job opportunity, a relationship decision, or even something as seemingly simple as planning a vacation. How many hours did you spend weighing options, researching possibilities, and imagining scenarios? And after all that mental effort, were you actually any closer to clarity? Or did you just feel more confused and overwhelmed than when you started? The truth is, more thinking does not equal better thinking. In fact, excessive analysis often leads to worse decisions, increased stress, and, most critically, paralysis instead of progress. Your brain, remarkable as it is, has limits. It's like a computer that starts to lag when too many programs are running simultaneously. Past a certain point, adding more thoughts to the mix doesn't enhance your processing power. It crashes your system. Neuroscience has revealed something fascinating about decision-making. Our brains actually perform better with constraints than with unlimited options and time. When faced with too many choices or given too much time to decide, our neural pathways become overwhelmed. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function and decision-making, actually shows decreased activity when overloaded with information. This isn't just theory. It's backed by real-world evidence from some of the most successful decision-makers in history. Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon and one of the world's most influential entrepreneurs, operates under what he calls the 70% rule. This principle is deceptively simple, yet profound. Make decisions when you have about 70% of the information you wish you had, because waiting for complete certainty is a fool's errand. In his 2017 letter to shareholders, Bezos explained this approach. Most decisions should probably be made with somewhere around 70% of the information you wish you had. If you wait for 90%, in most cases, you're probably being slow. Plus, either way, you need to be good at quickly recognizing and correcting bad decisions. If you're good at course correcting, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is going to be expensive for sure. This insight revolutionized Amazon's decision-making culture. Instead of getting bogged down in endless analysis, teams were empowered to move forward with imperfect information. The result? Amazon became one of the most agile and innovative companies in history, capable of launching new initiatives and pivoting strategies faster than competitors who were still stuck in analysis paralysis. But how do you actually implement this in your own life? The key lies in mental offloading, getting thoughts out of your head and into the real world where you can examine them objectively. Think of your mind like an overflowing closet. When everything is crammed inside, it's impossible to see what you have or make sense of the chaos. But when you take everything out and lay it on the bed, suddenly patterns emerge and decisions become clearer. Here's how to practice mental offloading. Instead of cycling through thoughts repeatedly, write them down. This simple act creates distance between you and your thoughts, allowing you to see them more objectively. Speak your concerns aloud, either to yourself or a trusted friend. Often, hearing our thoughts voiced makes their irrationality more apparent. Use decision frameworks like the 70% rule to create boundaries around your thinking time. The goal isn't to make perfect decisions, it's to make good enough decisions quickly, learn from the results, and adjust as needed. This approach might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to exhaustive analysis. But remember, the cost of slow decisions is often higher than the cost of imperfect ones. Observe Daniel, a tech entrepreneur who spent weeks agonizing over every business decision, from hiring choices to marketing strategies. His company was stagnating not because of bad decisions, but because of delayed ones. Competitors were moving faster, capturing market share while he was still analyzing data sets and creating elaborate pro-con lists. Everything changed when Daniel implemented the 70% rule. He set strict decision deadlines, 5 minutes for small choices, 24 hours for medium ones, and 1 week maximum for major strategic decisions. At first it felt reckless, like jumping without a safety net. But something unexpected happened. His success rate didn't decrease. In fact, his business began growing faster than ever. I realized I was confusing thoroughness with effectiveness, Daniel explains. Once I started making faster decisions, I had more energy to focus on execution and course correction. Even when a decision wasn't perfect, I could adjust quickly instead of being paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. Chapter 3. Fear in Disguise. The hidden driver of overthinking. Let's be honest. Overthinking isn't really about thinking. It's about fear. You don't overanalyze a decision because you love thinking. You do it because you're afraid of making the wrong choice, afraid of looking stupid, afraid of failure. Every time you replay a conversation in your head, obsess over a future scenario, or get stuck in decision paralysis, there's one emotion pulling the strings: fear. Think about the last time you found yourself caught in an overthinking spiral. Maybe you were crafting the perfect email, weighing a career move, or deciding whether to pursue a relationship. On the surface, it felt like careful analysis. But underneath all that logical reasoning was something far more primal: the fear of what might go wrong. Overthinking feels productive because it gives you the illusion of control. If you just think about something enough, Surely you can prevent any possible negative outcome, right? But this is the great deception of the overthinking mind. What feels like preparation is actually procrastination. What seems like wisdom is really just worry wearing a sophisticated mask. The human brain evolved to keep us safe, and it does this job remarkably well, sometimes too well. When your ancestors faced a threat, like a predator in the wild, their brains activated a sophisticated threat response system. This system, commonly known as the fight or flight response, floods the body with stress hormones, heightens awareness, and prepares for action. This same system activates today when you face social threats, the possibility of rejection, failure, or judgment. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and the fear of sending an imperfect email. It treats both as threats requiring immediate attention and resources. Research has shown that when we're caught in overthinking patterns, our amygdala, the brain's fear center, becomes hyperactive. This triggers a cascade of stress responses that actually impair our ability to think clearly and make decisions. The very system designed to protect us ends up paralyzing us. Talk about Oprah Winfrey's journey. Early in her career, she was fired from her position as co-anchor of WJZ-TV's 6 o'clock news in Baltimore. For many, this kind of public failure would trigger devastating overthinking spirals. The fear of another rejection could have kept her analyzing every move, second-guessing every decision, playing it safe to avoid further humiliation. Instead, Oprah made a crucial distinction that would shape her entire career. She learned to separate fear from logic. "I believe that failure is life's way of moving you in another direction," she often says. This wasn't just positive thinking. It was a fundamental shift in how she processed fear and made decisions. When offered the opportunity to host AM Chicago, a failing talk show, Oprah could have overthought herself into paralysis. The logical fears were all there. What if she failed again? What if she wasn't ready? What if the show's poor ratings were unfixable? But instead of letting these fears dictate her actions, she acknowledged them and moved forward anyway. Within months, she turned the lowest-rated talk show in Chicago into the highest-rated one. The key insight from Oprah's example isn't that she didn't feel fear. She absolutely did. The difference was that she didn't let fear disguise itself as necessary analysis. She recognized fear for what it was and made decisions based on possibilities rather than perceived threats. This brings us to the core principle of breaking free from overthinking. You must learn to recognize when your thinking is actually just fear in disguise. This doesn't mean ignoring legitimate concerns or rushing into reckless decisions. It means developing the ability to distinguish between genuine analysis and fear-based rumination. Here's how to start making this distinction. When you catch yourself in an overthinking loop, pause and ask, what am I actually afraid of here? Name the fear specifically. Is it rejection, failure, judgment, looking foolish? Once you identify the fear, ask yourself, if this fear wasn't in the equation, what would I do? This simple question often reveals that your natural instincts are being clouded by fear-based overthinking. Take Jared, a talented musician who spent years perfecting his songs, but never releasing them. On the surface, his overthinking looked like perfectionism, always finding one more thing to tweak, one more adjustment to make. But when he finally confronted the truth, he realized his endless revisions weren't about making the music better. They were about avoiding the vulnerability of putting his art into the world. I kept telling myself I was being thorough, professional, Jared explains. But really I was just terrified of criticism. Once I admitted that, I could see how fear was controlling every decision I made about my music. Jared made a bold decision. He would release one song every week, ready or not. No overthinking allowed. The first few releases were terrifying. His fears of criticism weren't completely unfounded. Some people didn't like his music. But something unexpected happened. The sky didn't fall. Some people loved his songs. Others offered constructive feedback that actually helped him improve. Most importantly, he was finally moving forward instead of being stuck in the paralysis of fear-based overthinking. The crazy thing is, now that I'm actually putting music out regularly, I'm thinking less but creating better songs, Jared says. All that overthinking wasn't making my music better. It was just keeping me stuck. This pattern repeats across every area of life where overthinking takes hold. The person who can't decide whether to start a business isn't really analyzing market conditions. They're afraid of failing. The one who obsesses over every word in a text message isn't being careful. They're afraid of rejection. The employee who can't speak up in meetings isn't being prudent. They're afraid of judgment. Today's challenge: identify one decision you've been overthinking and ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Be brutally honest. If it's fear of failure or embarrassment, commit to taking action anyway. Your goal isn't to eliminate fear. It's to prove to yourself that fear does not need to control your actions. Chapter 4. Digital Drowning. How Overstimulation Fuels Your Mental Chaos. Your mind wasn't always this loud. Think about when you were a child. There were moments of stillness, times when you weren't constantly analyzing, scrolling, or replaying conversations. But now, your brain never stops. Your phone is the first thing you check in the morning and the last thing you see before bed. You're bombarded with notifications, emails, texts, social media, and a never-ending stream of information. Your brain is drowning in input, and overthinking is the result. You don't have an overthinking problem. You have an overstimulation problem. The modern mind faces an unprecedented challenge. Every day you process more information than your ancestors did in their entire lives. Your brain, evolutionarily designed to handle the stimulation of a small village, now attempts to process a global city's worth of input every single hour. This isn't just overwhelming, it's rewiring your neural pathways, creating patterns of constant mental activity that make stillness feel impossible. Think of your brain like a computer. When you have too many programs running simultaneously, everything slows down. The system becomes sluggish, unresponsive, and prone to crashing. This is exactly what's happening in your mind. Every notification, every scroll through social media, every piece of news you consume, they're all open tabs demanding processing power. No wonder you can't think clearly. Neuroscience confirms this digital drowning effect. Research demonstrates that information overload significantly impairs decision-making abilities and increases anxiety-driven thought patterns. When your brain is constantly processing new information, it never gets the chance to enter its natural rest and digest state, the state where clarity emerges and overthinking subsides. Bill Gates, despite, or perhaps because of, his role in the digital revolution, recognized this problem early. His famous Think Weeks have become legendary in business circles. Twice a year, Gates completely disconnects from the digital world, retreating to a secluded cabin where he reads, thinks, and allows his mind to process without constant interruption. These periods of intentional disconnection have led to some of Microsoft's most innovative breakthroughs and Gates's clearest strategic decisions. What's particularly telling about Gates's approach isn't just the act of disconnection, it's the recognition that mental clarity requires space. He understood that genius doesn't emerge from constant input, but from the ability to process, integrate, and synthesize information in periods of relative stillness. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires courage. You must intentionally create spaces of mental silence in your daily life. This doesn't mean becoming a digital hermit or abandoning modern technology. It means taking control of your information diet with the same seriousness you would apply to your physical diet. Start with your morning routine. Instead of reaching for your phone the moment you wake up, give yourself 15 minutes of input-free time. Let your mind wake up naturally, without immediately drowning it in information. This small change can dramatically reduce morning anxiety and set a clearer tone for your entire day. Next, audit your notification settings. Every ping, buzz, and alert is a micro-interruption that pulls your mind out of its natural flow. Most people don't realize that their phones have trained them into a state of constant partial attention, never fully focused, always slightly distracted, waiting for the next notification. Emma, a freelance writer in Boston, discovered this the hard way. Her creative output had been declining for months, and she couldn't figure out why. She was spending more time at her desk than ever, yet producing less work. The problem wasn't effort, it was overstimulation. I had convinced myself that staying connected was essential for my work, Emma explains. Breaking news alerts for story ideas, social media for networking, email always open for client communication. But I was drowning in input and producing no output. Emma made a radical decision. She created what she calls her quiet hour. For the first hour of her workday, she turns off her phone, closes her email, and disconnects from the internet. No input, just output. The results were immediate and profound. The first few days were uncomfortable, she admits. I felt anxious, like I was missing something important. But by the end of the first week, I was writing more in that single hour than I had been in entire days before. My mind was finally quiet enough to hear my own thoughts. Your brain has an amazing capacity for clarity, creativity, and deep thinking. But these abilities only emerge when you give them space to breathe. The constant flood of information isn't making you smarter or more prepared. It's keeping you stuck in patterns of overthinking and anxiety. Today's challenge is simple but powerful. Choose one major source of overstimulation in your life and eliminate it for 24 hours. Maybe it's social media, news alerts, or the TV running in the background. Whatever it is, cut it out completely for one full day. Notice how your mind responds. Pay attention to the moments of clarity that emerge when you give your brain room to process rather than just consume. Chapter 5. Breaking free from your mind's stories. Your mind tells you stories all day long. You're not good enough. What if you fail? They probably think you're stupid. These thoughts feel personal, like an undeniable truth etched into your very being. They seem so real, so convincing, that you've never questioned their authority. But here's the reality that will transform everything. Your thoughts are not you. They are just mental noise, passing through like clouds in the sky. The problem isn't that you have thoughts, it's that you believe them. Think about this for a moment. Every time you've been absolutely certain about something negative about yourself, how often has it actually been true? Those moments when you were convinced everyone was judging you, only to later discover no one even noticed? The times you were sure you'd fail, but somehow succeeded anyway? Your thoughts have been lying to you, and you've been treating them like gospel truth. Most people assume that every thought they have is meaningful, important, or represents some deeper truth about reality. But neuroscience tells us a different story. Your brain generates approximately 60,000 thoughts per day, and research shows that up to 80% of these thoughts are negative, and an even more surprising 95% are repetitive from the previous day. These aren't profound insights. They're mental habits, grooves worn into your neural pathways through repetition and reinforcement. The breakthrough comes when you realize that you are not the thinker of your thoughts, you are the observer of them. This isn't just philosophical wordplay, it's a practical distinction that can transform your relationship with overthinking. When you understand that thoughts are simply mental events passing through your awareness, like clouds passing through the sky, they begin to lose their power over you. Consider how Eckhart Tolle's life transformed through this very realization. Before becoming one of the world's most influential spiritual teachers, Tolle suffered from severe depression and anxiety. His mind was a constant battleground of negative thoughts and painful rumination. But one night, in the depths of his despair, he had a profound insight. He could separate himself from the endless stream of thoughts that had been tormenting him. I couldn't live with myself any longer, Tolle recalls, and in this, a question arose without an answer. Who is the I that cannot live with the self? What is the self? I felt drawn into a void. I didn't know at the time that what really happened was the mind-made self, with its heavy, problem-laden story, collapsed. This distinction between the observer and the thoughts became the foundation of his transformation from someone trapped in mental suffering to a person experiencing profound inner peace. The thoughts didn't stop, but their power to control him did. The practical application of this insight is simpler than you might think, but it requires consistency and practice. The fastest way to stop overthinking is to stop engaging with every thought that passes through your mind. Instead of arguing with your thoughts, trying to push them away, or getting caught up in their story, practice detachment. Think of your mind like a busy train station. Thoughts are the trains passing through. Some are loud, some are quiet, some seem important, others trivial. But you are not the trains. You are the station itself. You don't need to board every train that arrives. You can simply watch them come and go. When a negative thought appears, I'm going to mess this up. Instead of engaging with it, simply label it. Oh, there's a thought about failure. When worry about the future arises, note it. There's a thought about the future. This simple practice of labeling creates space between you and your thoughts, making it easier to see them for what they are. Mental events, not absolute truths. Liam, a marketing executive in Chicago, spent years overanalyzing every mistake and perceived slight at work. Each presentation was followed by days of mental replay, examining every word choice, every reaction, every possible interpretation. His mind was a constant courtroom where he was simultaneously the accused, the prosecutor, and the judge. I thought this was just who I was, Liam explains. A perfectionist, detail-oriented, someone who cared deeply about getting things right. But really, I was just trapped in my head, believing every story my mind told me. Everything changed when Liam learned to label his thoughts instead of engaging with them. When the post-presentation analysis would begin, he'd simply note, "There's the review committee meeting again." When worry about a colleague's opinion surfaced, "There's a thought about what others think." At first, it felt too simple to work, he admits. But after a few weeks, I noticed something remarkable. The thoughts were still there, but they had lost their grip on me. I could let them pass by without getting pulled into their drama. My confidence grew not because I had fewer negative thoughts, but because I finally understood that thoughts weren't facts. The key to this practice is consistency and gentleness. You're not trying to stop thoughts or force your mind to be quiet. You're simply changing your relationship with thoughts. When you stop treating every thought as important and meaningful, your mind naturally begins to quiet down. Think of it like this. If every time a telemarketer called, you engaged in a lengthy conversation, they'd keep calling. But if you simply noted telemarketer and didn't engage, eventually the calls would decrease. Your thoughts work the same way. The more you engage with them, the more they persist. The more you simply observe them without getting involved, the less power they have. Chapter 6. Clearing the Mental Clutter. If you walked into a house filled with clutter, piles of paper, boxes stacked to the ceiling, junk everywhere, you wouldn't expect to feel calm. So why do you expect peace when your mind is filled with mental clutter? Every unfinished task, every pending decision, every worry about the future acts like another item piled onto the growing mountain of thoughts in your head. Overthinking thrives in this crowded, chaotic mental space. Before you can quiet your mind, you need to clean it out. Your brain wasn't designed to be a storage unit. When you try to hold on to every thought, worry, and task, it's like trying to juggle too many balls at once. Eventually, they all come crashing down. Research shows that physical clutter competes for your attention, leading to decreased performance and increased stress. Mental clutter works the same way, creating a constant background noise that makes it impossible to find clarity or peace. The solution isn't to think harder or organize your thoughts better. It's to get them out of your head entirely. Think of your mind like a computer's RAM. When too many programs are running simultaneously, everything slows down. But clear the RAM, and suddenly the system runs smoothly again. Marie Kondo revolutionized the way millions approach physical decluttering with her KonMari method. Her core insight wasn't just about organizing things better. It was about the profound impact that clearing space has on our well-being. When you put your house in order, you put your affairs and your past in order too, she explains. This same principle applies to mental clutter. During her rise to global recognition, Kondo noticed something fascinating. Clients who cleared their physical spaces reported mental clarity as well. It wasn't just their homes that felt lighter, their minds did too. This connection between external and internal order revealed a fundamental truth. Clarity requires space, whether physical or mental. The practical application of this insight is simpler than you might think, but it requires commitment. The most effective method for clearing mental clutter is what psychologists call cognitive offloading, or what I simply call a brain dump. This isn't about organizing your thoughts or creating neat lists. It's about getting everything out of your head and onto paper, creating space for clarity to emerge. Think of it like emptying an overflowing drawer. You don't start by organizing. You start by taking everything out. Only then can you see what you're dealing with and make clear decisions about what to keep, what to act on, and what to let go. Nora, a small business owner in Seattle, felt like her mind was constantly racing with unfinished tasks, half-formed ideas, and persistent worries. I would wake up at 3 a.m. with my mind spinning about everything I needed to do, she recalls. During meetings, I couldn't focus because I was afraid I'd forget something important. I felt like my brain was always operating at maximum capacity. The turning point came when she started doing daily brain dumps. Every morning, she would spend 5 minutes writing down everything on her mind: business ideas, personal worries, grocery lists, random thoughts about her weekend plans. Nothing was too big or too small to include. At first, it felt pointless, she admits. The same thoughts kept coming back anyway. But after a few days, I noticed something changing. My mind felt lighter, clearer. I wasn't constantly trying to remember everything because I knew it was all captured somewhere safe. Within weeks, Nora's entire relationship with her thoughts transformed. I realized I had been using my mind like a storage unit when it should have been more like a workshop, a place to create and solve problems, not just hold on to everything. The key to effective brain dumping is to do it without judgment or organization. Don't worry about spelling, grammar, or even making sense. Your only goal is to get everything out of your head and onto paper. Think of it as mental decluttering. You're not organizing yet. You're just creating space. Your challenge: take 5 minutes today and write down every single thing on your mind. No structure, no filters, just dump it all out. Then notice how much lighter and clearer you feel. Chapter 7: The Art of Letting Go. Imagine trying to swim while gripping a heavy rock. No matter how strong you are, that weight will pull you down. This is what overthinking does. It keeps you clinging to things that no longer serve you. Past mistakes, things you can't change, the need to control the future. The problem isn't that you don't have the answers. It's that you refuse to let go of the illusion that you can control everything. The more you hold on, the heavier your mind becomes. Your mind wasn't designed to carry the weight of every worry, every what if, and every past regret. Yet here you are, clutching these mental burdens like precious possessions, convinced that holding on tighter will somehow give you control. But control is the greatest illusion of all. The truth? The tighter you grip, the more exhausted you become. Think about how much mental energy you spend replaying conversations that happened months ago, obsessing over decisions you can't change, or trying to predict every possible future outcome. Each of these thoughts is like another rock you're trying to carry while swimming through life. No wonder you're tired. No wonder your mind won't quiet down. The secret to mental peace isn't figuring it all out. It's learning to release what you were never meant to carry. This isn't about giving up or not caring. It's about understanding the difference between what you can influence and what you're pointlessly trying to control. Overthinking thrives on attachment, the deep-seated belief that if you just think about something long enough, analyze it thoroughly enough, worry about it consistently enough, you can somehow change the outcome or protect yourself from pain. But this is an illusion, and a costly one at that. The more you obsess over what you can't control, the more powerless you actually become. Study in cognitive psychology reveals a fascinating paradox. The more we try to control our thoughts and feelings, the more they control us. Studies show that thought suppression, trying to force yourself not to think about something, actually increases the frequency and intensity of those thoughts. It's like telling yourself not to think about a pink elephant. Suddenly, that's all you can think about. The alternative? Letting go. But this isn't the passive, weak surrender you might imagine. True letting go requires tremendous strength. It's an active choice to release what doesn't serve you, to stop carrying what was never yours to carry in the first place. Nelson Mandela's story perfectly illustrates this principle. During his 27 years in prison, he had every reason to be consumed by anger, resentment, and thoughts of revenge. He could have spent every day replaying the injustices he'd suffered, plotting retribution, or drowning in bitterness. Instead, he made a profound choice to let go. In his autobiography, Mandela wrote about the moment he realized that his thoughts of hatred and revenge were a second prison, one he had built himself. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, he said, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. This wasn't just philosophical wisdom, it was practical psychology. By choosing to release his grip on resentment and the need for vengeance, Mandela freed not just his mind, but his entire future. He emerged not as a bitter ex-prisoner, but as a leader capable of uniting a divided nation. Letting go wasn't weakness, it was his greatest strength. The science behind letting go is equally compelling. When we release our grip on things we can't control, our bodies respond. Blood pressure decreases, stress hormones decline, and our immune system functions better. Our brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, decision-making, and problem-solving, becomes more active and efficient when we're not bogged down by excessive rumination. So how do you actually let go? The process begins with recognition. You must first identify what you're clinging to, whether it's an outcome you can't control, an opinion you don't need to defend, or a past mistake you can't change. Ask yourself, what mental rocks am I carrying? What thoughts keep circling in my mind? What old stories am I refusing to release? The next step is to challenge your attachment. For each thought you're holding on to, ask, Does carrying this serve me? Is holding on to this making my life better? What would happen if I simply let it go? Rachel, a talented designer in Portland, couldn't stop obsessing over a negative performance review she'd received 6 months earlier. Every project, every client interaction, every decision was filtered through the lens of that criticism. She'd replay the review in her mind, thinking of all the things she should have said, all the ways she should have defended herself. I thought if I analyzed it enough, somehow I could change what happened, she explains, or at least protect myself from it ever happening again. But the more I thought about it, the worse I performed. I was so scared of making another mistake that I second-guessed everything. The turning point came when Rachel started practicing the art of mental release. Every time the review crept into her thoughts, she'd ask herself, "Does holding on to this help me right now?" The answer was always no. Gradually, she began to see that her attachment to that past criticism was holding her back far more than the criticism itself ever had. "I started treating these thoughts like leaves floating down a stream," she says. "I'd acknowledge them. Yes, that happened. Yes, it hurt. But then I'd let them float away instead of grabbing onto them. It was hard at first, but with practice, it became natural." Within weeks, Rachel's work transformed. Without the weight of past criticism constantly dragging her down, she found herself taking creative risks again, trusting her instincts, and producing some of her best work. "Letting go didn't make me care less," she reflects. "It actually freed me to care more about the things that really mattered." Your mind is like a cup. When it's full of old thoughts, old worries, and old regrets, there's no room for new insights, new opportunities, or new peace. Letting go isn't about emptying yourself. It's about making space for what truly matters. Your challenge: choose one thing you've been mentally holding on to, an old regret, an unresolved argument, a missed opportunity, and consciously decide to let it go today. Breathe in, acknowledge it, and breathe out, releasing it from your mind. Feel the weight lift. Chapter 8. Breaking free from social replays. It always happens when you're trying to sleep. You start replaying that conversation from earlier, what you said, how they reacted, what you should have said. The more you analyze it, the more you convince yourself that you sounded foolish, said the wrong thing, or missed the perfect response. But here's the truth. No one else is thinking about it as much as you are. The conversation is over. The only place it exists now is in your head. Your mind has become a theater where past conversations play on endless loop, each replay more distorted than the last. What started as a simple exchange transforms into a critical analysis of every word, pause, and gesture. You imagine hidden meanings in their tone, craft perfect responses that come hours too late, and convince yourself that this one interaction will somehow define your entire relationship or reputation. But this mental rewind button is stealing your peace. While you're lying awake at night, reconstructing a 5-minute conversation from every possible angle, the other person has likely moved on completely. They're not dissecting your word choice or questioning your social skills. They're probably thinking about their own lives, their own concerns, their own conversations. This tendency to overanalyze social interactions isn't just a quirk. It's a form of self-protection gone wrong. Your brain, wired through evolution to be hyper-aware of social threats, treats every interaction as potentially dangerous. It replays conversations looking for mistakes to fix, threats to avoid, or lessons to learn for next time. But this vigilance, which might have served our ancestors well in small tribal communities where social standing meant survival, has become excessive in our modern world of countless daily interactions. Research in social psychology reveals a fascinating phenomenon called the spotlight effect, our tendency to overestimate how much attention others pay to our words and actions. Studies show that people remember only about 10% of what we say, and even then, they're more focused on their own responses than our exact words. While you're obsessing over that slightly awkward phrase you used, they've likely forgotten it entirely. Barack Obama's approach to public speaking offers a powerful lesson in breaking free from this trap. As one of the most scrutinized speakers in the world, he faced constant analysis of every word. Yet, rather than getting caught in endless self-review, he focused on presence and authenticity over perfection. In his memoir, he describes learning to trust that his preparation and intentions matter more than any single phrase or moment. "I learned to let go of the need to sound perfect," Obama noted in a 2020 interview. "The most important thing was connecting with people, not second-guessing every word." This mindset allowed him to maintain composure and effectiveness even under intense scrutiny. Instead of replaying his speeches endlessly, he focused on the next opportunity to connect and communicate. The key to breaking free from social replay loops lies not in analyzing better, but in analyzing less. Every minute spent reconstructing past conversations is a minute stolen from present peace and future growth. The solution isn't to become a better social analyst, it's to become a better observer of your own thought patterns. Ethan, a high school teacher in Seattle, used to spend hours after parent-teacher conferences replaying every interaction. "I would lie awake thinking about how I could have explained things better, wondering if parents thought I was competent enough," he recalls. "Some nights, I'd reconstruct entire conversations, creating alternative versions where I said exactly the right thing." This habit began affecting his sleep, his confidence, and ultimately, his teaching. The more he analyzed past interactions, the more anxious he became about future ones. The breakthrough came when he learned to interrupt these thought patterns with a simple question: "Is this helping me?" Every time I caught myself replaying a conversation, I'd stop and ask myself that question, Ethan explains. The answer was always no. These mental replays weren't making me a better teacher. They were just making me more self-conscious. He developed a simple practice. Whenever he noticed himself slipping into replay mode, he would physically stand up, take a deep breath, and say out loud, "That conversation is over. It doesn't exist anymore." This physical interruption, combined with the verbal acknowledgement, helped break the mental loop. It felt strange at first, he admits, but it worked. The more I practiced stopping these replays, the more present and confident I became in actual conversations. I wasn't carrying the weight of every past interaction anymore. Your challenge: the next time you catch yourself replaying a conversation, interrupt the cycle by physically shifting focus. Stand up, take a deep breath, or say out loud, "That conversation is over. It doesn't exist anymore." See how quickly your mind moves on. Chapter 9. The Decision Paralysis Trap. How much of your life have you wasted stuck in indecision? Whether it's what to eat for dinner or a major career move, you turn every choice into a mental battlefield. You tell yourself that if you just analyze long enough, you'll find the perfect answer. But here's the hard truth. There is no perfect decision. There is only action or paralysis. Every moment spent weighing options is a moment lost to overthinking. You scroll through restaurant reviews for hours, comparing ratings and reading every comment. You create endless pros and cons lists for career moves, adding new items faster than you can evaluate them. You ask everyone's opinion about your relationship, hoping someone else's perspective will provide the clarity you can't find. But this quest for the perfect choice is destroying your ability to choose at all. The more options you consider, the harder it becomes to decide. It's not just frustrating, it's exhausting. Your brain wasn't designed to handle this many decisions or this much analysis. Every choice you agonize over drains mental energy that could be better spent elsewhere. Decision fatigue is real, and it's crippling your ability to think clearly. Study shows that the quality of our decisions deteriorates the more choices we make throughout the day. It's why judges make harsher decisions later in the day, and why you're more likely to order takeout after a day of difficult choices at work. The most successful decision makers understand this limitation. They don't waste mental energy trying to make perfect choices. They make good enough choices quickly and move on. They recognize that most decisions are reversible, and even those that aren't are better made imperfectly than not at all. Steve Jobs, despite running one of the most innovative companies in history, wore the same black turtleneck and jeans every day. This wasn't about fashion. It was about eliminating unnecessary decisions. By removing the daily choice of what to wear, he preserved mental energy for more important decisions. He understood that simplification leads to clarity. "I want to put all of my decision-making energy into the few decisions that really matter," Jobs explained in a 1998 interview. "I'm not interested in wasting mental cycles on things that don't contribute to our mission." This principle extends far beyond wardrobe choices. Warren Buffett, another master decision-maker, uses a simple two-list system. Write down your top 25 goals, circle the 5 most important, and then avoid everything else at all costs. He knows that clarity comes from elimination, not endless analysis. The key to breaking free from decision paralysis isn't developing better analysis skills. It's learning to decide faster with less information. This means accepting that most decisions don't require extensive research or debate. It means trusting that a good choice now is better than a perfect choice later. Tom, a college student in Boston, spent 2 years agonizing over his major. He switched between economics, psychology, and computer science, convinced that choosing wrong would ruin his life. He read every career guide, took every aptitude test, and consulted countless advisors. But all this research only made him more uncertain. The breakthrough came when he learned about the 70% rule. If you're 70% sure about a choice, make it. This simple framework freed him from the need for certainty. He realized that his interest in psychology met the 70% threshold, declared his major, and finally started making progress. The relief was immediate, Tom recalls. "Once I stopped trying to make the perfect choice, I could actually focus on learning and growing. And you know what? Even if it wasn't the absolute perfect choice, it was good enough to build a future on." He applied this same principle to other decisions, choosing classes, applying for internships, even deciding where to live. Each quick decision built confidence for the next one. Within a year, his friends noticed the change. The person who once took 30 minutes to choose a lunch spot was now making confident choices in moments. Your challenge: for the next 24 hours, practice making quick decisions. Set a time limit: 30 seconds for small decisions, 5 minutes for larger ones. Commit to your choice and move forward without looking back. Watch how freeing it feels. Chapter 10: The Power of Silence. Most people are afraid of silence. The moment there's a pause in conversation, an empty space in the day, or even a second of stillness, they reach for their phones, turn on music, or fill the void with unnecessary chatter. But what if silence isn't something to avoid? What if it's your greatest weapon against overthinking? In a world of noise, the ability to embrace silence is a superpower. True mental clarity comes not from thinking more, but from creating space between your thoughts. Think about the last time you experienced true silence. Not the artificial quiet of noise-canceling headphones or the muffled stillness of a closed room, but genuine, undisturbed silence. Chances are, you can't remember. In our hyper-connected world, we've lost touch with the power of quiet moments. We've convinced ourselves that productivity means constant activity, that success requires perpetual motion, that empty space must be filled. This fear of silence is costing you more than you realize. Every moment filled with unnecessary noise, whether external or internal, is a missed opportunity for clarity, insight, and deep understanding. Your mind needs silence like your body needs sleep. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity for mental health and clear thinking. Silence isn't emptiness, it's the birthplace of insight, creativity, and deep decision-making. Neuroscience shows that moments of stillness activate the brain's default mode network, responsible for deep reflection and problem-solving. This network, sometimes called our brain's imagination center, only fully engages when we step back from constant stimulation. Without quiet moments, your mind never has a chance to process, leading to chronic overthinking. Research reveals that even brief periods of silence trigger the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the region associated with memory, learning, and emotional regulation. In other words, silence doesn't just feel good, it physically rebuilds your brain's capacity for clear thinking. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for silence's power comes from Albert Einstein, whose greatest breakthroughs often emerged during his famous thought experiments. These weren't elaborate laboratory tests. They were periods of intentional silence where he allowed his mind to wander and explore possibilities without external interference. Einstein would often take long walks alone, deliberately creating space for his thoughts to settle and connect in new ways. During one such walk in 1907, he had the insight that would eventually lead to his theory of general relativity. "I thought of it while riding my bicycle," he later explained, emphasizing how these quiet moments of contemplation, not frantic analysis, led to his most profound discoveries. If a genius like Einstein relied on silence, why are you running from it? The answer lies in our modern discomfort with stillness. We've been conditioned to view silence as unproductive, as wasted time that could be filled with more information, more entertainment, more stimulation. But this constant input is precisely what keeps your mind trapped in overthinking loops. The first step to reclaiming mental stillness is getting comfortable with silence. Instead of filling every gap with noise, intentionally create moments of quiet. Turn off background music, drive in silence, or take a walk without your phone. At first, this might feel uncomfortable, even anxiety-inducing. That's normal. Your mind, accustomed to constant stimulation, will resist the quiet. But push through this initial discomfort. Notice how your thoughts gradually settle, like sediment in still water. Pay attention to the insights and solutions that emerge not from forcing thoughts, but from allowing them space to surface naturally. Maya, a corporate executive in Seattle, discovered this truth the hard way. Working 60-hour weeks in a demanding tech company, she filled every moment with activity, meetings back-to-back, podcasts during her commute, TV shows while eating, social media before bed. Her mind was never quiet, and it was burning her out. "I thought I was being productive," she recalls, "but I was really just drowning out my own ability to think clearly. I was so afraid of silence that I'd created this constant noise machine in my head." The breaking point came during a particularly stressful project. Unable to sleep and overwhelmed with racing thoughts, Maya remembered reading about Einstein's walking meditations. Desperate for any solution, she decided to try something radical. 5 minutes of complete silence every morning before checking her phone or starting her day. The first few days were challenging. Her mind screamed for stimulation, creating lists of tasks she should be doing instead. But by the end of the first week, something shifted. She noticed herself thinking more clearly, making decisions with less anxiety, and feeling more centered throughout the day. It wasn't just about the silence itself, Maya explains. It was about giving my brain permission to exist without constant input. Those 5 minutes became my anchor, a reminder that I don't need to fill every moment with noise to be productive. Within a month, Maya had extended her silent time to 15 minutes and added another quiet period in the evening. Her team noticed the difference in her leadership. She was more present in meetings, made clearer decisions, and seemed less reactive to challenges. Most importantly, her chronic overthinking began to subside. "I realized that silence wasn't empty space to be filled," she says. "It was the foundation everything else needed to rest on. Without it, I was building my thoughts on shifting sand." Chapter 11. The Power of Focus. Your mind is like a powerful river. When channeled properly, it can generate immense energy and drive meaningful progress. But when scattered across multiple streams, it loses its force and creates mental turbulence instead. Have you ever noticed how time seems to disappear when you're deeply focused? Whether it's reading a book, working on a passion project, or playing a sport, the world fades away, and your mind is completely engaged. This state, often called flow, is the opposite of overthinking. The reason your mind is constantly spinning isn't because you think too much. It's because you're not directing your thoughts where they matter. Overthinking is a lack of focus, not an excess of thought. When your attention is divided, your brain enters a state of constant task switching, draining your mental energy and amplifying anxiety. Each time you jump between thoughts, emails, notifications, and worries, you're forcing your mind to repeatedly restart its processing. This fragmented thinking creates the perfect breeding ground for overthinking. Research demonstrates that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain focus after a single interruption. Multiply that by the dozens of times you switch tasks throughout the day, and it's no wonder your mind feels exhausted and overwhelmed. The solution isn't thinking less. It's thinking with greater intention and focus. Warren Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors, understands this principle deeply. His approach to decision-making and mental clarity isn't about processing more information. It's about eliminating distractions and maintaining laser-like focus on what truly matters. Buffett famously keeps a nearly empty calendar, allowing him to spend hours in deep concentration on investment decisions without the mental fragmentation that plagues most people. The difference between successful people and really successful people, Buffett notes, is that really successful people say no to almost everything. This isn't just about time management, it's about mental management. By focusing intensely on one thing at a time, Buffett prevents his mind from spinning into the overthinking spirals that trap so many investors. The key to breaking free from overthinking isn't adding more productivity tools or trying to process thoughts faster. It's learning to direct your mental energy with precision. Think of your attention like a spotlight. When you shine it in multiple directions, it becomes weak and diffused. But when you focus it on a single point, it becomes powerful enough to illuminate even the darkest corners. This is where time blocking becomes your most powerful tool against overthinking. Instead of trying to juggle multiple thoughts and tasks simultaneously, dedicate specific time blocks to single activities. During these periods, eliminate all distractions, turn off notifications, close unnecessary tabs, and create an environment that supports deep focus. Chris, a software engineer in Portland, discovered this truth after years of struggling with mental overwhelm. Like many professionals, he prided himself on being a multitasker, constantly switching between coding, emails, team chats, and project planning. But despite working longer hours than his colleagues, he felt perpetually behind and mentally exhausted. "I thought being responsive and available for everything was making me more productive," Chris explains. "But I was actually training my brain to be scattered and unfocused. The more I tried to juggle, the more my mind raced with worried thoughts about all the balls I might drop." The turning point came when Chris read about the concept of deep work and decided to experiment with focused time blocks. He started small, setting aside 90-minute periods where he would work on a single programming task without any interruptions. The first few sessions were challenging. His mind, conditioned to constant switching, rebelled against the constraint. But within a week, something shifted. Not only was Chris completing more work in less time, but his overthinking began to subside. When I gave my brain permission to focus on just one thing, it stopped trying to process everything at once, he says. The mental noise that used to plague me started to quiet down. Your challenge: choose one task today and give it 100% focus for 30 minutes. No distractions, no multitasking. Experience how much more clarity and mental control you gain when you channel your thoughts in one direction. Chapter 12. Overcoming analysis paralysis. Analysis paralysis. It's the modern plague of the overthinker. You know the feeling all too well. Standing in front of your closet each morning, paralyzed by the simple choice of what to wear. Scrolling endlessly through streaming services, unable to commit to a movie while precious evening hours slip away. Agonizing over career decisions until opportunities pass you by. The more options you have, the harder it becomes to choose. And in today's world of infinite possibilities, this paralysis has become an epidemic. But here's what you need to understand. The perfect choice is a myth. It's a mental trap that keeps you stuck in an endless loop of analysis, comparison, and second-guessing. Your brain tricks you into believing that if you just think about it long enough, research a bit more, or consider every possible angle, you'll discover the ideal option. But this pursuit of perfection isn't making your decisions better. It's making them impossible. When you're caught in analysis paralysis, your mind becomes like a computer running too many programs at once. Each option you consider, each pro and con list you create, each what-if scenario you play out, they all consume precious mental energy. Eventually, your brain becomes overwhelmed, leading to decision fatigue, a state where your ability to make choices deteriorates significantly. Research demonstrates this phenomenon clearly. In their famous JAM study, researchers found that when customers were presented with 24 varieties of jam, only 3% made a purchase. However, when the selection was limited to just 6 options, 30% of customers bought jam. The conclusion: more choices don't lead to better decisions, they lead to no decisions at all. Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, now Meta, understood this principle early in his career. His solution to decision fatigue? Wearing the same gray t-shirt every day. While this might seem extreme, there's profound wisdom in his approach. By eliminating unnecessary decisions, he preserves his mental energy for choices that truly matter. I really want to clear my life to make it so that I have to make as few decisions as possible about anything except how to best serve this community, Zuckerberg explains. This isn't just about clothes or jam, it's about understanding a fundamental truth. Good enough is usually better than perfect. In fact, research shows that maximizers, people who try to make the optimal choice, often end up less satisfied with their decisions than satisficers, those who accept the first reasonable option. The solution to analysis paralysis isn't more thinking, it's better decision-making systems. You need clear rules and boundaries that prevent your mind from spinning into endless deliberation. Here's how to build these guardrails. The 3-second rule. When faced with a decision, pay attention to your initial gut reaction within the first 3 seconds. This instinctive response is often more reliable than hours of analysis. The 90% rule. If an option meets 90% of your criteria, choose it. Stop searching for that elusive perfect match. Decision deadlines. Set strict time limits for different types of decisions. Small choices get 60 seconds, medium ones get 5 minutes, and major decisions get 24 hours. Sophia, a freelance graphic designer in Seattle, used to spend days agonizing over which client projects to accept. She'd analyze every aspect: the budget, timeline, creative freedom, client personality, portfolio potential, creating elaborate spreadsheets to compare options. This overthinking not only caused her stress, but also cost her opportunities as clients moved on while she deliberated. Everything changed when she implemented the 3-second rule. Now, when reviewing potential projects, she gives herself just 3 seconds to feel whether it's a yes or no. If she feels immediate excitement or clarity, she accepts. If she feels hesitation or dread, she declines. No spreadsheets, no pro-con lists, no endless analysis. At first, making decisions this quickly felt terrifying, Sophia admits. I worried I'd make horrible mistakes. But something unexpected happened. My quick decisions were actually better than my overanalyzed ones. Why? Because I was finally trusting my experience and intuition instead of drowning in details. Within 3 months of adopting this approach, Sophia tripled her productivity. More importantly, she found herself enjoying her work more because she was spending time creating rather than analyzing. Her success rate with clients improved too, proving that faster decisions weren't leading to worse outcomes. The key insight from Sophia's experience is that analysis paralysis often masks a deeper issue: lack of trust in yourself. You overanalyze because you don't trust your judgment, experience, or ability to handle the consequences of a wrong choice. But here's the truth. Most decisions are reversible, and taking action teaches you more than endless analysis ever could. Think about the last time you were stuck in analysis paralysis. How much time did you spend thinking about the decision? How much energy did you waste worrying about making the wrong choice? Now imagine if you had spent that time and energy actually taking action, learning from the results, and adjusting course as needed. Your challenge for the next 24 hours: make every decision within 60 seconds. What to wear, what to eat, what to watch, which email to respond to first. Everything gets a 1-minute timer, no exceptions. This might feel uncomfortable at first, but that's the point. You're training your brain to trust your instincts and break free from the paralysis of overthinking. Chapter 13: The Power of Now. Breaking free from time travel thinking. Right now, your mind is probably doing one of two things: worrying about the future or replaying the past. Maybe you're overanalyzing something you said yesterday, or stressing over what might happen tomorrow. But here's the hard truth. Neither of those moments exist anymore. The past is done. The future hasn't happened yet. Overthinking thrives on time travel, but real peace is only found in the now. Learning how to anchor yourself in the present moment is the antidote to endless mental noise. Your brain operates like a time machine, constantly jumping between memories of what was and predictions of what might be. This mental time travel feels productive. After all, isn't it smart to learn from the past and plan for the future? But there's a crucial difference between useful reflection and destructive overthinking. When you're stuck in the past, you're usually not learning. You're ruminating. When you're anxious about the future, you're not planning. You're catastrophizing. Your brain is wired to predict the future and learn from the past, which is why it so easily gets stuck outside of the present. But when you spend too much time there, you miss real life. Neuroscience shows that present moment thinking increases happiness, reduces stress, and sharpens decision-making. Studies reveal that people spend 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're currently doing, and this mind-wandering consistently makes them less happy. The science behind this is fascinating. When you're fully present, your brain's default mode network, the circuit responsible for mind-wandering and overthinking, becomes less active. This leads to reduced anxiety, better focus, and improved cognitive performance. It's like turning down the volume on mental noise and turning up the clarity of the present moment. Kobe Bryant was famous for his ability to be completely locked into the present, a state he called being in the moment. His performance wasn't just about talent, it was about training his mind to stay focused on now, not on past mistakes or future outcomes. In interviews, Bryant often spoke about how this mental discipline set him apart from other players. During crucial game moments, while others might be thinking about past failures or future consequences, he remained laser-focused on the present action. "If you're thinking about missing a shot before you take it," Bryant once explained, "you've already missed twice." This wasn't just sports psychology. It was a fundamental truth about how the mind works. When you're fully present, you access a level of performance and clarity that's impossible to reach while overthinking. Training yourself to think in the present starts with awareness. Whenever your mind drifts to the past or future, bring it back to now. The fastest way to do this? Use sensory grounding techniques. Focus on your breath. Notice 5 things around you, or feel the weight of your body in your chair. These aren't just meditation tricks. They're neurological reset buttons that pull your brain back to the present moment. Think of your mind like a puppy in training. Just as a puppy naturally wants to chase every squirrel it sees, your mind naturally wants to chase every thought that passes by. Your job isn't to eliminate all thoughts. That's impossible. Instead, like training a puppy to stay, you're training your mind to remain present even when distractions arise. The key is consistency, not perfection. Every time you catch your mind wandering and bring it back to the present, you're strengthening your mental muscles. It's like doing a rep at the gym. Each return to the present moment makes you stronger and more capable of maintaining focus. Lucas, a musician, used to get so caught up in what people might think of his performance that he lost his passion for playing. His mind would race between past mistakes and future judgments, creating a mental noise so loud it drowned out the music itself. Once he started practicing present moment thinking, focusing only on the note he was playing right now, his anxiety vanished, and his music became better than ever. "I realized I was never actually playing music," Lucas recalls. "I was always thinking about playing music. There's a huge difference. When I finally learned to stay in the moment, to feel each note as it happened, everything changed. The music flowed naturally, and ironically, people started complimenting my performances more than ever." Lucas's transformation didn't happen overnight. He started small, using a simple technique during practice sessions. Whenever his mind would drift to past performances or future concerts, he would focus intensely on the physical sensation of his fingers on the strings. This tangible anchor to the present moment became his refuge from overthinking. The beauty of present moment thinking is that it breaks the cycle of overthinking naturally. When you're fully engaged in the now, there's no mental space for unnecessary analysis. It's like trying to watch 2 movies at once, impossible to do effectively. By choosing to focus on the present moment, you automatically reduce overthinking about past and future. Your challenge: throughout your day, catch yourself whenever your mind drifts into overthinking about the past or future. Say to yourself, "Right now, I am here." Breathe. Anchor yourself back into the present. Chapter 14: Movement over Mind. Breaking free through physical action. You can't think your way out of overthinking, but you can move your way out of it. If you've ever gone for a run, taken a walk, or done a workout and felt mentally lighter afterward, that's not a coincidence. Your body and brain are deeply connected, and movement is one of the fastest ways to silence mental chaos. Overthinking thrives in stillness, but the moment you engage your body, the noise in your mind begins to fade. The relationship between physical movement and mental clarity isn't just anecdotal, it's deeply rooted in neuroscience. When you move your body, your brain undergoes a remarkable transformation. Research shows that movement increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, often called miracle grow for the brain, which helps clear mental fog and improve cognitive function. Exercise also reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that fuels overthinking and anxiety. But the benefits go even deeper. Physical movement activates your body's natural stress relief mechanisms, triggering the release of endorphins that act as natural mood elevators. These biochemical changes create what scientists call a neural reset, essentially giving your overthinking mind a chance to reboot and find clarity. Richard Branson, founder of Virgin Group and serial entrepreneur, starts every morning with physical activity because he knows it's his secret weapon for mental clarity. Despite running a global empire, Branson maintains that his most important business decisions come after tennis matches or bike rides. "I definitely can achieve twice as much by keeping fit," he explains. "It keeps the brain functioning well." Branson isn't just following a personal preference, he's tapping into a fundamental truth about how our brains work best. The science behind this is fascinating. When you engage in physical activity, your brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for complex thinking and decision-making, actually becomes more efficient. It's like defragmenting a computer. Movement helps organize your thoughts and clear out mental clutter. Studies have shown that even a 10-minute walk can improve cognitive performance and reduce overthinking for up to 2 hours afterward. But here's what makes movement such a powerful tool against overthinking. It forces your brain to shift from abstract thinking to concrete experience. When you're walking, running, or moving, your mind naturally focuses on the physical sensations of your body rather than getting lost in endless thought loops. This natural redirection is more effective than trying to think your way out of overthinking. You don't need to become a hardcore athlete or spend hours at the gym to benefit from this principle. The key is to incorporate movement into your daily life, especially when you notice yourself getting stuck in thought spirals. Simple actions like standing up from your desk, stretching your arms overhead, or taking a quick walk around the block can break the cycle of overthinking. Think of movement as a mental reset button. Just as you might restart a frozen computer, physical activity helps restart a mind that's stuck in loops of overthinking. The beauty of this approach is its immediacy. While other strategies might take time to work, movement provides almost instant relief from mental chaos. Elena, a college student pursuing her master's degree, used to spend hours agonizing over every academic decision. Should she change her thesis topic? Was she taking the right classes? Did her professor think she was capable enough? These questions would cycle through her mind endlessly, paralyzing her with indecision. Everything changed when she started implementing a simple rule. Whenever she caught herself overthinking, she would immediately go for a 10-minute walk around campus. No headphones, no phone, just walking and observing her surroundings. At first it felt like a waste of time, but she soon noticed something remarkable. After each walk, her mind felt clearer, and decisions that had seemed impossible suddenly became manageable. The funny thing is, Elena recalls, I used to think I needed more time to think things through. But what I really needed was less thinking and more moving. Now when I feel stuck, I don't try to solve it by sitting still. I get up and walk it out. The answers often come when I stop trying so hard to find them. Elena's experience highlights a crucial truth. Movement isn't just about physical health. It's a powerful tool for mental clarity. She discovered that some of her best academic insights came not from hours of sitting and thinking, but during or after these short walks. Her grades improved, her stress levels decreased, and most importantly, she broke free from the paralysis of overthinking. The key to making this work is immediacy. Don't wait until you've been overthinking for hours to take action. The moment you notice your thoughts starting to spiral, that's your cue to move. Stand up, stretch, walk, jump, anything that gets your body in motion. Think of it as movement first aid for your mind. This approach is particularly effective because it's both preventive and curative. Regular movement helps prevent overthinking by maintaining better baseline mental clarity, while immediate movement helps cure acute episodes of overthinking by breaking the cycle of repetitive thoughts. Your body has an innate wisdom that your overthinking mind often drowns out. Movement helps you tap back into this wisdom, allowing you to access what psychologists call embodied cognition, the understanding that our thoughts are deeply influenced by our physical states. When you're physically stuck in one place, your thoughts tend to get stuck too. But when you move, your thoughts begin to flow more freely. The next time you feel trapped in overthinking, remember this: your body holds the key to your mental freedom. Don't try to think your way out of the maze. Move your way out instead. Stand up, stretch, walk, dance. Whatever form of movement feels natural to you. Pay attention to how your mental state shifts as your body moves. Chapter 15. Digital Detox. Breaking free from the screen spiral. You check your phone first thing in the morning. You scroll while waiting in line. You refresh your notifications even when there's nothing new. You think this is normal, but it's rewiring your brain for overthinking. Every time you flood your mind with endless information, you make it harder for your brain to rest. You don't need more content. You need mental space. The relationship between digital overload and overthinking isn't just theoretical, it's biological. Each notification, each scroll, each quick check triggers a dopamine response in your brain, creating a cycle of constant stimulation and mental agitation. Your mind wasn't designed to process this much information. When you're constantly connected, your thoughts never have a chance to settle. The science behind this is startling. Research shows that excessive screen time fundamentally alters your brain's neural pathways, making it harder to focus and easier to overthink. The constant switching between apps, notifications, and digital stimuli trains your brain to seek endless novelty while reducing its ability to sustain attention or find peace in stillness. Your phone is designed to hijack your attention. Studies show that excessive screen time increases anxiety, reduces focus, and fuels overthinking. Social media, news updates, and notifications keep your brain in a constant state of stimulation, making it impossible to fully relax. Each interruption, each quick glance at your screen, fragments your attention and amplifies mental noise. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes of waking life. Each check creates a mental ripple effect, disrupting focus and triggering new thought patterns. It's not just the time spent on devices that matters. It's how this constant connectivity reshapes your mind's natural rhythms and ability to find clarity. Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter, provides a powerful example of digital boundaries in action. Despite creating one of the world's most engaging social platforms, he limits his screen time and practices tech-free periods daily to maintain focus and clarity. If someone who created a global social media platform understands the importance of unplugging, shouldn't you? Dorsey's approach isn't just personal preference. It's based on understanding how digital overload impacts cognitive function. He regularly takes extended breaks from technology, including multi-day meditation retreats, where he completely disconnects. The result? Sharper decision-making, reduced mental noise, and enhanced creativity. Breaking free from digital overload starts with small, intentional changes, turning off unnecessary notifications, setting phone-free hours, or keeping your device out of reach while working. The key is to create space between you and your devices, allowing your mind to remember what genuine quiet feels like. Think of your attention like a muscle. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone, you strengthen your ability to focus. Every notification you turn off is mental space reclaimed. Every moment you choose presence over digital distraction is an investment in mental clarity. The transformation begins with awareness. Notice how often you reach for your phone without thinking. Pay attention to how your mind feels after an hour of scrolling versus an hour of being fully present. Start recognizing the difference between using technology intentionally and letting it use you. Derek, a freelance writer, found himself endlessly scrolling whenever he had free time, leading to constant mental clutter. His creativity was suffering, and his thoughts felt scattered and unfocused. The more he consumed digital content, the harder it became to produce his own work. I used to think I needed to stay connected to be productive, Derek recalls. But I was really just drowning my creativity in noise. Every scroll, every notification was another thought competing for space in my mind. When he started implementing a 1-hour phone-free rule every morning, his mind became noticeably quieter, and his creativity flourished. Instead of starting his day with social media updates and email checks, he used that time for reading, writing, or simply sitting with his thoughts. The first few days were uncomfortable, he admits. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, but after a week I started looking forward to that quiet hour. My mind felt clearer, my writing improved, and most surprisingly, my anxiety decreased. I realized how much mental energy I'd been wasting on digital noise. Derek's experience highlights a crucial truth. Digital overwhelm isn't just about time spent on devices. It's about how that constant connectivity shapes your thought patterns and mental habits. By creating boundaries with technology, he didn't just reduce screen time, he reclaimed his ability to think clearly and create freely. The science supports Derek's transformation. Research shows that even brief periods of digital detox can significantly reduce stress hormones and improve cognitive function. When you give your brain regular breaks from digital stimulation, you strengthen its natural ability to filter information and maintain focus. Your challenge: choose one digital detox habit. Turn off notifications, delete a distracting app, or set a screen-free hour today. Experience how much lighter your mind feels without constant digital noise. Conclusion: you've come a long way. When you first opened this audiobook, your mind was a crowded room filled with endless chatter, second-guessing, and mental noise that never seemed to quiet down. You were trapped in analysis paralysis, stuck between wanting to move forward and being paralyzed by overthinking every decision. Like so many others, you believed that thinking more meant thinking better. Most importantly, you've discovered that your mind can be your greatest ally rather than your worst enemy. You've experienced the power of mental offloading, the freedom of letting go, and the clarity that comes from embracing silence. You've broken free from the digital overwhelm that keeps so many minds trapped in constant stimulation. This is your new normal. A mind that serves you rather than controls you. A life where clarity, action, and inner peace aren't just possibilities. They're your daily reality. Will overthinking try to creep back in? Of course. Old habits die hard, and your brain will occasionally try to fall back into familiar patterns. But now you have something you didn't have before: awareness and control. You can recognize overthinking for what it is, a habit, not a necessity, and choose a different response. Your journey doesn't end here, it's just beginning. Every day is an opportunity to strengthen these new mental muscles, to choose clarity over chaos, action over analysis, and peace over perfectionism. You have everything you need to maintain this new way of being. Step into this new version of yourself and never look back. The quiet mind isn't just a method anymore. It's who you are. Welcome to your new life of mental freedom. Remember, a quiet mind isn't an empty mind. It's a powerful mind. Your thoughts no longer control you. You control them. This is your new normal. Embrace it. Thank you for listening and for investing in yourself. I believe in you. Your potential is endless. Now, go out there and create the life you deserve.